Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael. I've got some pecans and it is time to make a pecan pie. So let's get started making that pie crust. You can definitely use the ones you get in the store, but I'm going to make mine from scratch today and I'm going to show you how to make it. All right, so we're going to start with our flour. I've got all-purpose flour here. We want 1 1/4 cups or 150 grams. I've got my scale. I'm going to measure mine out today. You get a more accurate measurement if you measure it out in grams. And we want to put the bowl on there and zero that back down. And again, this is all-purpose flour. I want 150 grams. All right, I've got my flour measured out now. We're not going to be using the scale for the next part. And I'm going to set that to the side, and I want to put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm just going to take a whisk and whisk that together. I've got that mixed together now. I'm going to set that to the side, and I've got 1 stick of unsalted butter, or that's 113 grams, or 8 tablespoons if you're measuring it that way. And what we're going to do, you want to make sure this is really cold. We want the water that we're going to be putting in our mixture here and our butter to be as cold as you can get them. So I left mine in the refrigerator till it was time to get ready for that. So what we're going to do is just take a knife, and we're just going to cut these into little quarters, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Cut it just like that, and we'll cut it just like that, and I'm going to put that in with my flour, and I'm going to continue to cut the rest of this butter up. All right, I've got my butter now and my flour. We're going to take our clean hands. We want to make sure we get a little bit of flour on the outside of all the surfaces of our butter. All right, I've got all the flour now on my butter. We're going to take it with your forefinger and your thumb, and we're just going to pinch it until it looks like that. We're going to do all the pieces like that, and we're going to get that all worked together into our flour. We want to leave just a few of the bigger pieces in there, but for the most part, we're going to incorporate all the butter into the flour, and it's going to have the kind of consistency of what cornmeal looks like. So just continue to work that around with your thumbs until you get all the butter worked in, and I'll show you what it looks like once we're finished. I've got my butter mixed in with my flour. I wanted to show you what that looked like, and I've got some, big pieces here, and that'll be really nice when we put that together and you put that in your pie pan. You'll get that nice flaky crust that we all want in a pie. Now I've got some water here. I've got 1/4 cup of water, and I've got some ice cubes in it. We want this water to be as cold as we can possibly get it. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to put this together until it just sticks together. Now there could be a lot of variables that could play in how much you're going to use. You might only be able to use a tablespoon, might be able to use 2, 3, 4, 5, or use the whole 1/4 of a cup if you've got that. And what's going to depend on that is how humid your house is. If the flour's got a lot of moisture in it, you might not need as much water in it, but you'll be able to tell when you get ready to start mixing it together how much you're going to be able to use. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 1 spoonful, and we're just going to put that in like that, and just give that a little mix together with your hand. As you can see now, it's coming together very nicely. It's going to need just a little bit more water, so I'm going to grab another spoonful. Mine has come together after 2 of those spoonfuls like that, so you can see when you pick it up, if it holds together like that, you know that it is ready to go. So I'm going to get me a seal mat here, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do, because you don't want to overwork your pie dough. You want it to be nice and fluffy and flaky in that pie, so I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. All right, so I've got a silicone mat here that I've got on my cutting board, and that's what we're going to turn that out on. I'm going to put just a little bit of flour on the board so that my dough doesn't stick to it, and just want just a little bit of sprinkling of that on the top, and just kind of rub it in with your hands just a little bit. Now I'm going to take my dough, and I'm going to put all of it out onto my silicone mat. And with this, we're just going to work this together. What I do with this, I just take it and I just squeeze it together just like that, and then I'll turn the mat sideways and push it together like that. And we just want this to come together, and we're going to pick it up off the mat. I'll take some of that flour off of it. We don't need all of that on there. And we'll do the same thing again. I'm just going to turn it in on itself. All right, I've got my dough done now. I wanted to show you what that looks like there. Like I said, just turn it in on itself a couple of times until it gets smooth looking. You definitely don't want to overwork that. And I've got some cling film here, and I'm just going to put that over the top of it, and we're going to put this back into the refrigerator, and we want this to rest. You can actually make this ahead of time. If you want to make this a day ahead of time, you definitely can. All right, I've got my cling film wrapped around my dough now. It's ready to go into the refrigerator. You can leave it in there for an hour. If you can make it in advance, if you definitely want to. I know we are all really busy with things and we've got going on in our lives. So if anything that you can do to make ahead of time would be perfect for that. So put this in the refrigerator, let it rest, And then you'll need to take it out and let it warm up just a little bit to room temperature so that we can roll it out. So let this rest and I'll be back in just a minute. I am back and our dough is out of the refrigerator now. It is ready to be rolled out. So you'll be able to tell when you pull it out of the refrigerator, it's going to be really cold and you won't be able to do anything with it. But you can kind of press on it after you let it sit out here on the counter for 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how long you've had it in there. If you've had it in there overnight, you definitely might want to wait a half an hour so you can roll it. But you'll be able to tell if you push on it a little bit, if it gives and it's going to be warm enough. And if it isn't, you can, as you start rolling it out, just let it rest here on the counter some more and it'll warm up and you'll be able to continue to move it. So let's take it out of this wrap now and let's get this started. And I'm going to hang on to my cling film because I'm going to reuse this again. So now what we're looking at now, this mat that I've got here has concentric circles on it and it goes from 12 inches or 30 centimeters on that, so you'll be able to measure that out. What you want to do is just take your pie pan, turn it upside down, and then add maybe a couple of inches for the height of it here on both sides. You'll have enough of that rolled out so that it'll fit up on the sides of the pan. So I'm going to take some flour here and I'm going to dust this mat that I've got. Just put down just a little bit here. And I'm going to take some of my hand and I'm going to put it on my rolling pin. And now I'm going to take my dough and put it back on my mat here. And what we want to do with this, we want to keep it moving. So as we roll out on the first one here, you can tell that it is moving pretty good and it has warmed up enough. And you'll be able to tell if it starts splitting or you're not able to move it at all, that it's not warmed up and you need to leave it out just a little bit longer. So then we'll turn it 90 degrees and then we'll roll it in this direction both ways. And then we'll do the same thing again. Just keep turning it and moving it. And if you want to, you can turn it over a little bit and roll it out on the back, wipe some of that flour off the top. Roll it out on that way. Turn it 90 degrees and continue rolling it until you get the size that you need. All right, I've got it rolled out pretty good here. I'm going to take my rolling pin now. I'm just going to roll it up on the rolling pin so that I can transfer it over to my pie pan. And then you take your pan and we're just going to set the dough on the top and just roll it out over the top of it, just like that. Now with this, we don't want to be pushing down into the pan. We want this just to kind of fall into place. And you can work it around with your hands until you get it into the place where you actually need it. If you start pushing on it, you'll stretch it and it'll get really thin in places you don't want it to be. After you've rolled it out really nice on the board here, we just want to make sure that we get this to fit down into the pan itself. So just move it around and pull your dough up until you get it to where it sits in the bottom of it. And then we've got all these folds and things. This is really easy to fix. Just take your finger and you can push those right out just like that, and you'll never know that they were ever there. Very forgiving. Now if you've got some pieces, like I'm kind of short here on this side, I've got a little bit more length on over here than I need. I'm just going to take a little bit of this off and I'm just going to pinch this right onto this, and you can do all kind of repairs and things to this. So it's very forgiving dough, and get it fixed just like that. So with that, we're ready now. You want to leave about an inch on the sides and you can pull it off with your fingers. If you've got some kitchen shears, you can actually go around and just cut it off whatever you need. Just leave yourself about an inch on the side of it there so we can turn that under. I've got the excess dough removed now, and what I want to do now is I want to take it and we're just going to fold it under. So you just grab it and you fold it under till you get to right at the edge of the pan, and we're going to leave that lip on there just like that. All right, now that we've got our dough turned in on itself, you can leave it just like that, or if you want to put those nice flutings on the top of it, you're going to take your index finger and your thumb of your other hand, and we're just going to push it in just like that, and we're going to continue to work around the top until we get those nice flutings all the way around. I've got my nice flutings now on my pie shell, and we're now ready to blind bake our pie shell. I've got my oven now preheating to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's roughly 220 degrees Celsius. So I've got my ceramic medium here ready to go, and I've got my parchment paper here ready to go also. I've got it crumpled up. It just fits down into there a little bit nicer. And all you have to do with that is just crinkle it up. And with that, you want to be really careful. You don't want to disfigure what you've worked so hard to make. So be careful when you put that into your pie shell. And you just want to kind of push that in there to where it's got the same shape as what your sides and bottom of your pie shell do. And then I've got a piece of aluminum foil, and I've done the same thing with that. You can reuse these over and over and over again. Just put them in a plastic baggie and set them aside, and you've got them. If you don't want to use this again, you can definitely use this aluminum foil over and over and over again. And so we're just going to crinkle this up and do the same shape that we did with our parchment paper. And with these, I've got my pie weights, and I'm going to go ahead and use those. If you don't have any pie weights, you can definitely use dry beans, and that way you can use those over and over and over again. If you're going to be making a lot of pies, it would be good investment if you wanted to invest in these pie weights. They're reusable. You can use them over and over and over again. I'll let you see what that looks like there. And all you do is just going to put that down inside that foil. And because of the size of this, I want it to come up pretty close to the top. We want to be able to hold those walls up. I'm going to use another box of them. And now we just want to move them out and spread them out so that they will keep that shape of our pie shell. That looks good where that is. I'm going to pop this onto a baking pan that I've got here. I've just got one of these half sheet baking pans, and I'm going to put that into my preheated oven, and we're going to cook this for 15 minutes. And we'll come back and I'll let you see what that looks like when it's done. I just pulled the crust out of the oven now. It's been in there for 15 minutes, and we want to be really careful because this is really hot, and we want to take our ceramic medium out. So I'm going to grab these corners and pull them together, and I'm going to put them in this strainer over here. Our pie shell looks really good now. We've kept the shape of it by cooking it like that and blind baking it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my egg wash on the inside of it. I've got just one egg here with just a little bit of water in it. And I'm going to take this brush and I'm just going to brush the inside of it just to get a nice little bit of a glaze on the inside there. All right, so now I've got my egg glaze in there. I did not put it around the top of the crust because I didn't want that to get any more brown than what it already is now until I get ready to put my filling in it. So you've got a couple of options now. I still got that oven on at 425. You can take some aluminum foil and just kind of tint over the edge of the crust here. That way that crust on the top of that won't get very brown on that until we get ready to start baking it. Or if you've got one of these silicone pie covers for the edges of it, you can put that on it, and that just fits over the top of it just like that. And these are really nice because these are really affordable and they're reusable over and over and over again. I think I'm just going to leave this on there just like that. I'm going to put that back in that 425 degree oven for about 3 to 5 minutes. I just want that egg wash to cook on the inside of that. And I'm going to put this back in there for 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll be back and we'll move on to our next ingredients now for our pecan pie. I've got my pie shell out of the oven now, and that egg wash has baked in there nicely. I'm going to set this to the side and let this cool down. Preheat that oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or approximately 175 degrees Celsius, and I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do now with our ingredients for our pecan pie. I've got all of my ingredients now for my pecan pie laid out here, and we want our eggs to be at room temperature. I've got 3 large eggs, so definitely while you're making your pie crust, set your eggs out so they can come to room temperature. I've got a mixer here, and I'm going to go ahead and break these 3 eggs into this bowl, and I'm going to break them into another bowl first just to make sure I get 3 good ones and I don't have any of those shells in my eggs. That looks like a good egg, and we'll go ahead and add that in, and I'll do my other 2. All right, I've got my eggs in the bowl now. I'm going to take my mixer and I'm going to mix these for 2 or 3 minutes just to whip some air into them. All right, it's been 3 minutes now on my eggs, and I've got 1 cup of light karo syrup, and I'm going to add that in. I just put my 1 cup of my light karo syrup in, or that's approximately 235 milliliters. And I'm going to take my mixer and just mix this together. That was about 15 seconds on that. Now I've got light brown sugar here. I've got 1 cup of lightly packed brown sugar, or that's about 185 grams, and we'll add that in. I've got 2 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. We'll add that in. I've got 1 tablespoon of my homemade vanilla. If you've never seen that video, I'll put the link in the description box below. Go check it out. It's really interesting how it's made, and it makes great gifts if you're looking for somebody that's got everything in the kitchen. 1 tablespoon of vanilla, and we'll add that in. 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm just going to use the mixer to mix that together. I've got everything mixed together now. We're going to move on now to my last ingredient, and I've got 1.5 cups of pecans, or that's 150 grams, and we're going to add those in. You can put those in the bottom of the pie pan if you want to. They're just going to bake and come right to the top. So I'm just putting them in there just like that. My mom and my uncle did that when I was growing up, and I used to watch them make pies and things, and so I just mix it in just like they do. If you want to cut those up, you definitely can, and to little smaller pieces. I just left them into the size that they were half of the pecan. So definitely, if you want to, you can cut them up if you want to in little pieces. I like the bigger pieces in mine. Now I'm going to grab my pie crust and we're going to put this together. All right, I've got my pie shell here. It is ready for our ingredients, so let's go ahead and put that together. All right, I've got all my ingredients mixed together now, and my oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's approximately 175 degrees Celsius. And mine bakes between 50 minutes to 1 hour, typically about 15 minutes. So start checking on it about 45. You'll be able to tell when it's done, when it's set. If you can wobble it just a little bit and it's still jiggly, it is not ready to be done, pull out of the oven. You want it to be set. It might have just a little bit of wobble in the middle, but when you take that out of the oven, as it cools down, that will go away. And I've also got it sitting on this half sheet pan here. I always, when I'm baking anything, I always put another pan under it. That way it kind of evenly distributes that heat out under that pan of our pie, and we don't get that really hard crust on the bottom. We want that nice flaky crust when we pull that out of the oven. At about 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to check on it just to make sure that the edge of my crust here on the top is not getting too brown for my likings. If it is, and I'll put that aluminum foil tinting around the outside, or I'll put that silicone wrap around the edge of the top of it. So check it in about 20-25 minutes, see how your crust is doing, and then about 45 minutes start checking on it. Mine takes about 50 minutes, and I'll see you back when this is done. I just took my pecan pie out of the oven. It did cook for 50 minutes, and I did check on it at 40 minutes, and it wasn't quite done yet. It was still too wobbly, but I'm trying not to burn myself, but you can see that it's set up. It's got just a little bit of a jiggle to it, not much, and that's how you can tell that it's done. So we need to now let this sit up and cool down. Do not cut into it now because you will have a runny mess, and we don't want that. So for a minimum of 2 hours, we want this to cool down. So let this sit at room temperature. Let this cool down. If you've got the opportunity to cook this overnight and have it for the next day, that would be even better. But minimum of 2 hours, let this cool down to room temperature, and we'll cut into it, and I'll show you what this looks like. I know this is going to be absolutely delicious. It smells incredible. Let's try it. I've made pecan pies in the past, but I think this is the best one that I've ever made. That crust is absolutely delicious. The filling on that has the perfect amount of sugars, and the pecans in there are really good. And that whipped cream on the top of it just adds that little bit of extra to it. I know you're going to love this recipe. If you've never made a homemade pecan pie or the crust before, definitely give this recipe a try. I know this will be one of your new favorite recipes. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of these other two videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you on how your pecan pie turned out. Bye-bye now.